In the bustling city of Seoul, a mother and her baby found themselves in a terrifying situation. A monstrous creature had attacked them, its grip firm around the baby, who cried out in distress. The mother, frantic and desperate, shouted for help from anyone nearby, hoping for a savior to rescue her child. Despite the presence of policemen, they proved powerless against a monstrous being, falling victim to its relentless assault. Just as the creature poised to harm the baby, a figure suddenly appeared. Clad in a mask and wearing a reverse white cap, this mysterious man moved with incredible speed. In a swift and fluid motion, the white-capped man used his bare hand, slicing off the Inhuman's arm. The act happened so swiftly that the mother and onlookers were left stunned. The Inhuman, now startled and disarmed, realized its severed limb lay on the ground. Consumed by rage, it throws the baby aside, intent on attacking its unexpected adversary. Yet, the white-capped man was not one to be easily overcome. With remarkable agility, he evaded the Inhuman's assault, delivering a powerful kick to its face, propelling it into the wall of a nearby building. Undeterred, the Inhuman launched another attack, only to be met with a series of lightning-fast strikes from the white-capped man. In a matter of seconds, the once fearsome creature lay lifeless on the ground. The crowd watching the astounding spectacle erupted into applause, their amazement and admiration were evident. They marveled at the white-capped man's incredible skills, praising his bravery and cool demeanor. Curiosity filled the air as one person among them inquired about the white-capped man's identity, but the mysterious hero offered no reply, simply gazing at them intently. The mother, overwhelmed with gratitude, approached him, expressing her heartfelt thanks for saving her precious baby. She was relieved beyond words and unsure of how to repay this enigmatic savior. Yet, as the white-capped man stood silently, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a sense of awe and wonder. At Seoyin High School in Incheon, a teacher was engaging his students in a discussion about the meaning of natural disasters. He explained that these phenomena were disastrous and catastrophic events, ill-starred occurrences of nature. However, amidst the conversation, one student was distracted by a video on his phone. It depicted an incident that had taken place in Seoul a few days ago, which someone had uploaded online. Excitedly, two students began discussing the remarkable white-capped superhuman featured in the video. They marveled at the individual's bravery in risking their life to capture the incident involving a mother and baby. As they watched, their disbelief grew at the white-capped man's seemingly unreal abilities in defeating the Inhuman effortlessly. One of the students even expressed fear, contemplating the dire consequences of encountering such creatures. Their conversation grew louder, catching the attention of the teacher, who inquired about their whispering. Just then, the school alarm blared, signaling a disaster alert. The sudden alert surprised everyone, except for one student who had been sleeping. An announcement followed, informing everyone that a potential Inhuman had been spotted near Incheon Port and that all classes were cancelled. Students and faculty were instructed to go home. While students hurriedly packed their belongings, a female student pondered the recent frequency of such events. It had only been a week since the last incident, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Memories resurfaced of a few years prior when an Inhuman had killed approximately 70 people and decimated the city of Gangneung. She dreaded the possibility of another catastrophe of that magnitude. Lost in her thoughts, she noticed a classmate still sleeping beside her. She couldn't believe someone could remain oblivious during this critical moment. Just as she was about to wake him up, the sleeping student's phone buzzed, jolting him awake. His name was Lim Kang, a first-year high school student in class 3. The caller, Jurai, informed him of a location in Incheon Port and promised to provide the exact coordinates later. Jurai reminded Lim Kang not to forget to wear the earpiece. Lim Kang acknowledged the instructions, replying with a brief "got it." After ending the call, he noticed a female student beside him. Awkwardly, she explained that she had planned to wake him up because it was time to go home. Lim Kang yawned and nonchalantly replied that he would leave. The female student was taken aback by his carefree attitude, convinced that he wouldn't survive for long. Once Lim Kang ensured that everyone had left the classroom, he opened his bag and retrieved the earpiece. He glanced around cautiously, making sure no one was watching, before heading towards the bathroom to change his clothes. Meanwhile, at Incheon Port, a truck driver seethed with anger as he recklessly rammed his vehicle into the menacing Inhuman. To his astonishment, the Inhuman remained unfazed, seemingly impervious to the impact. The driver, sweat streaming down his face, couldn't comprehend the situation. In a retaliatory move, the Inhuman smashed the truck, reducing it to a mangled heap. Fortunately, the driver and his companion had managed to escape, seeking refuge behind a cargo container. Trembling with fear, the companion sobbed, believing their lives were hanging by a thread. The driver sternly instructed his companion to stop crying and making noise if they wanted to survive. He reassured him that the military was on its way, urging him to remain silent and patient. Unbeknownst to them, the Inhuman silently leaped onto the top of the cargo container, eavesdropping on their whispered conversation. The companion's eyes widened in horror as he looked up, catching a glimpse of the Inhuman peering down at them. Meanwhile, back at the school, Lim Kang, now in the bathroom, began changing his clothes. It was revealed that he was the masked white cap man from the video. Jurai called once again, emphasizing the severity of the situation and urging Lim Kang to hasten his actions while providing him with directions. Jurai also inquired if Lim Kang was wearing the earpiece, to which Lim Kang confirmed that he already had it on. Jurai then questioned the whereabouts of his backpack and uniform, to which Lim Kang replied that he had hidden them well. Jurai expressed concern, remarking that Lim Kang was usually careless. He informed Lim Kang that the distance from the school to the port was approximately 11 minutes and instructed him to run in the direction he would indicate. During their conversation, Lim Kang opened the bathroom window and assumed a squatting position, ready to leap. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, he informed Jurai that he would run as fast as possible, and then he jumped then disappear. Back at the port, the driver and his companion found themselves in a state of shock and drenched in sweat. The Inhuman launched an attack, sending the driver flying into another cargo container, rendering him unconscious and bleeding. Uncertain if the driver was still alive, the companion trembled, paralyzed with fear, fixated on the Inhuman. The Inhuman then turned its attention to the companion, ruthlessly slamming him into the cargo container. As the Inhuman finished its assault, it noticed another individual running in the distance. Springing from the top of the cargo container, the Inhuman leaped toward the fleeing human. Gripping the man's head, the terrified individual pleaded with the Inhuman to spare his life. Ignoring the plea, the Inhuman hurled the man against the side of the cargo container, leaving him injured but alive. Closing in on the injured man, the Inhuman evoked fear and despair, causing the man to pale. He resigned himself to his impending demise, realizing the sheer power of an Inhuman. In a moment of terror, he contemplated his mortality. Suddenly, a loud shout reverberated through the air, commanding the Inhuman to stop. A wrench, a handheld power tool, soared through the air, striking the Inhuman's head. Bewildered, the Inhuman turned to identify the source of the interruption. It encountered another human wielding a handheld power tool, demanding an end to its rampage. Meanwhile, on the road leading to the port, Lim Kang sprinted with remarkable speed. Jurai marveled at his progress, comparing his swiftness to that of an airplane. Jurai cautioned Lim Kang to be careful as news had just come in that the Inhuman Subjugation Special Task Force's imminent arrival and the unknown strength of the Inhuman they were facing. Back in the port, the person who was holding a hand tool shouted to his companion to wake up, indicating that it was his chance to run away. The injured pale man thought that everyone had already run away. They conversed with each other in the presence of the Inhuman, and the man holding the hand tool realized that the Inhuman seemed to be looking at him. Taking this opportunity, he called his companion an idiot and urged him to escape. The man with the hand tool had mentally prepared himself to die. The reason he came back was because his conscience wouldn't allow him to leave his foolish companion behind. Tears welled up in his eyes as he thought about his child and wife, seeking their forgiveness for his foolish actions. Suddenly, both men were stunned and confused as the Inhuman turned away and headed toward a cargo container. Astonishingly, the Inhuman effortlessly gripped the edge of the container with a single hand, lifting it. The man with the hand tool watched in terror as the Inhuman hurled the container in his direction, rendering him frozen with fear. In that critical moment, a shadowy figure wearing a white cap leaped into action, kicking the cargo container away just in time. The man with the hand tool's eyes widened in disbelief, shocked by what he had just witnessed. The two men, as well as the Inhuman, looking at the scene before them, visibly perplexed. The heroic figure in the white cap landed gracefully on the ground and warned that throwing objects like that was dangerous. Lim Kang stood bravely before the imposing Inhuman, his gaze locked onto its fearsome form. Meanwhile, Jurai anxiously observed the scene through Lim Kang's small camera, which was affixed to his white cap. Shuddering, Jurai couldn't help but ask Lim Kang if he felt nervous. With a resolute demeanor, Lim Kang turned to Jurai and inquired whether he should try communicating with the creature. Before engaging in battle, the two friends devised a plan. They decided to attempt speaking with the Inhuman. They were aware that the odds of success were slim, but they believed it was worth taking the chance. Jurai expressed his belief that these creatures were nothing more than indiscriminate killers, deserving of a brutal defeat. However, he also acknowledged that encountering an inhuman that could communicate might offer valuable insight into their motives and origins. Despite the risks involved, they agreed that it was better than simply resorting to violence and killing them outright, especially considering they had nothing to lose by trying to communicate. Lim Kang proceeded to ask the inhuman. He asks if he was able to speak. He said that he have met other guys like him a few times. He asks if he can understand what he's saying, but before Lim Kang finishes his sentence, the inhuman speaks a few words which shocked both Lim Kang and Jurai. The inhuman became enraged, shouting in an unknown language as its body turned red and its teeth grew larger. It attacked Lim Kang, who dodged and floated in the air. The inhuman followed suit, slapping him, but Lim Kang swiftly defended himself with his arm guard. Before crashing into a cargo container, he kicked and jumped behind the inhuman, landing gracefully in a resting squat position. Jurai was worried and asked Lim Kang if he was okay, but Lim Kang replied that he was faster than he looks, and it seems to talk to the inhuman didn't work. Jurai asks Lim Kang to be more careful. Meanwhile, a news helicopter arrives reporting what happened to the scene. They notice an unbelievable sight. The white-capped superhuman was fighting the inhuman, and the subjugation special task force has just arrived. On the other side of the port, soldiers arrived, and the captain swiftly ordered them to ready their weapons and stay on standby, emphasizing that opening fire was not permitted. A soldier raised a concern, explaining that the entrance was too narrow for tanks and railguns to enter. The captain acknowledged the limitation, saying, "That's fine. Keep everyone on standby." The soldier persisted, seeking to execute their plan, but the captain interrupted, emphasizing that they were underestimating the true power of Inhumans. He elaborated that standard military firepower couldn't match the capabilities of these beings. The Special Intelligence Agency had analyzed the fights of the white-capped superhuman, concluding that his power far surpassed military standards. Similarly, the inhuman he faced was on equal footing, making it impossible for them to intervene if the superhuman failed. The soldier questioned their purpose of being there, to which the captain responded that they had a plan B. At that moment, a mysterious man inside a truck was revealed, donning a gauntlet and wielding two formidable weapons. In the city, a large screen displayed the events unfolding at the port. A crowd of people gathered, their eyes glued to the news about the white-capped superhuman engaged in a fierce battle against the inhuman. Despite the veil of mystery surrounding him, it was evident that he was fighting with all his might for humanity. However, the tide seemed to be against him as he struggled against the formidable inhuman adversary. The spectators watched with bated breath, their hearts heavy with concern for the fate of the courageous superhuman fighting to protect them all. Meanwhile, Lim Kang desperately tried to outrun the relentless inhuman, pondering the creature's incredible speed and the lesson of not judging others hastily. Before he could complete his thoughts, the inhuman's fist loomed dangerously close, poised to strike him. With remarkable agility, Lim Kang leaped onto a nearby cargo container, narrowly avoiding the devastating blow as the inhuman's fist became lodged in the container. Seizing the opportunity, Lim Kang sprang into action, launching an attack on the inhuman. But to his surprise, the creature spat something from its mouth, disrupting Lim Kang's balance mid-air. Struggling to regain control, he was caught off guard as the inhuman grabbed his foot and slammed him to the ground with tremendous force. The impact sent him bouncing thrice before colliding with the side of a cargo container, creating a gaping hole. Spectators, including the soldiers and their captain, were left in shock witnessing the seemingly overwhelming defeat of the white-capped superhuman. Unbeknownst to the other soldiers, their mission was to assist a superhuman without obstructing him. In response to the dire situation, the captain ordered the implementation of Plan B. Suddenly, the back door of a nearby truck swung open, and a soldier leaped onto the truck's roof, wielding a unique weapon equipped with a scope. He wasted no time and fired a precise shot at the inhuman, hitting it with a headshot and causing it to stagger. However, to their surprise, the inhuman swiftly rose, seemingly unharmed, and didn't take any damage from the attack. The inhuman shifted its attention towards the soldier who was continuously firing at it. The soldier kept up the rapid barrage, forcing the inhuman to dodge and advance closer to the soldier. However, the battle took an unexpected turn as both the inhuman and the soldier abruptly ceased their actions. They turned their gazes toward the container hole, sensing some kind of movement emanating from within. Lim Kang stepped out of the container hole, feeling relieved that he had been propelled towards a solid surface, preventing him from being thrown into the sea. Jurai let out a sigh of relief, reassured that Lim Kang was all right. Jurai expressed his thoughts, suggesting that this particular inhuman seemed unresponsive, either incapable of speech or simply uninterested in doing so. Lim Kang agreed, acknowledging that it appeared that way. With a determined expression, Lim Kang asserted his plan to crush the inhuman with all his might. Ready to give it his all, he prepared to face the creature once more. In a swift movement, he vanished from sight, leaving the creature bewildered. Before the inhuman could react, Lim Kang reappeared in front of it, delivering a powerful downward kick that sent the creature crashing to the ground. Seizing the opportunity, he grabbed the inhuman's jaw, pulled it towards him, and then leaped into the air, slamming it back down with incredible force. The impact was so intense that it generated a powerful gust of wind and a mini-earthquake, leaving everyone who witnessed the spectacle in shock. From the people in the city to the soldiers and Jurai, their eyes widened in disbelief as they struggled to comprehend the astonishing display of power by the white-capped superhuman. Lim Kang kept a close watch on the inhuman's body, noticing slight movements in what appeared to be its final struggles before succumbing to death. Jurai, ever cautious, asked Lim Kang if the battle was truly over, unsure if the inhuman might rise again. Lim Kang reassured him, explaining that he believed the inhuman was dead, having sensed its brain explode upon impact. However, he remained prepared to deal with any possibility, knowing he could defeat it again if necessary. Reflecting on the encounter, they concluded that this inhuman was not as formidable as the one they faced on Anmian Island. The previous encounter had proven to be a much tougher challenge compared to this one. In the background near the port, a mysterious man with braided hair, black lipstick, and a piercing beneath his lower lip chuckled, expressing his enjoyment of watching the fights unfold in real time. He commented on the rumors surrounding the white-capped superhuman, referring to him as a ruthless individual who held back his true strength in the battle. With a sly grin, the mysterious man leaped into the air, addressing his companion named Dan Yang, and assured her that he would return shortly. The mysterious braided hair man landed gracefully behind Lim Kang, emanating an air of confidence and coolness. As Lim Kang turned to face him, he inquired about the man's identity. In response, the man laughed and remarked on Lim Kang's intimidating glare, playfully referring to him as the white-capped superhuman. As the braided man walks towards Lim Kang, Jurai observes with curiosity, wondering about the man's motives and origins. Lim Kang, on the other hand, locks his gaze on the man, then shifts his gaze upward to where the man's companion, Dan Yang, stands above. Lim Kang informs Jurai that there are more of them up there. Dan Yang, the companion of the braided man wearing a hood, looks back at Lim Kang, also without saying anything. Meanwhile, the reporter in the helicopter keenly observes the unfolding events below and begins reporting that a mysterious braided man has appeared on the scene. Despite their efforts, they are unable to discern the nature of the conversation between the mysterious braided man and White Cap. As the news spreads, many people watching the big screen become worried and curious about the situation. Some even wonder if a confrontation is about to occur, while confusion engulfs the soldiers on the ground. The captain of the soldiers is equally perplexed, unable to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. Acknowledging the uncertain circumstances, the captain orders his troops to remain on high alert until the white-capped superhuman leaves the scene. The braided man expressed disappointment over the abrupt end to White Cap's fight. He found the battle enjoyable, comparing it to the flashy and explosive fights of Ketchup Man, a beloved character from a famous superhero TV show. In response, Lim Kang denied any similarities to Ketchup Man, while secretly blushing as he was a super fan and idolized the character. However, the mysterious man seemed puzzled by White Cap's reaction. Observing his friend's reaction and weakness for compliments, Jurai was taken aback by their conversation. He urged Lim Kang to focus on more important matters, such as the mysterious man's identity and origins. Despite his friend's lack of proficiency in reading people, Jurai sensed the danger emanating from the enigmatic individual, knowing that this mysterious man was not to be underestimated. After Jurai's remark, Lim Kang blushed and snapped, asking in an incorrect sentence, where did your identity come from?" Hearing this, the braided man laughed and commented on White Cap's lack of crisis awareness. He revealed that he had closely monitored White Cap through TV broadcasts, social networks, streams, and inhuman alerts, noting that White Cap always appeared, no matter the situation. The braided man explained that he came to the scene for a specific purpose unrelated to him, and watching the fight was just a bonus. He guaranteed that he had no intention of doing anything to him. However, Lim Kang remained skeptical, asking why he should believe him. The braided man fell silent, not offering any further explanation. Jurai urged the Lim Kang to pay close attention and reminded him of a past incident when he was approached by friendly-seeming men in suits in the city of Samcheok who suddenly shot tasers at him. He warned that the current situation with the braided man could be similar. He might be a government agent or part of the military with unknown intentions. Jurai emphasized the need for caution and the urgency to leave the area. While listening to Jurai, Lim Kang remained silent, his focus fixed on the braided man. In response to feeling despised, the braided man decided to share something interesting. He inquired what the term material world meant to Whitecap. Lim Kang answered, "Superhumans," to which the braided man replied with a smiley face, revealing that he, too, was superhuman. This revelation alerted both Jurai and Lim Kang. The braided man continued, explaining that there are others like them, individuals who defy logic and possess strength beyond imagination. Lim Kang listened attentively, while Jurai recognized that such a revelation wasn't entirely unexpected, considering there were already verified superhumans in America and Europe, and unofficially, only one in Korea. Kang. Simultaneously, in the United States, a group of individuals watches the broadcast of the encounter between Whitecap and the braided man in Korea. Among them is a person named Ben, who finds the braided man peculiar and seemingly following the Whitecap. A yellow blonde woman named Pearl interrupts, stating that she has seen the braided man somewhere before. Ben initially assumes Pearl is referring to the Whitecap, but she clarifies that she meant the cocky-looking guy with braids. Pearl asks Ben if he can listen to their conversation, but he regretfully informs her that they are unable to understand what the two are talking about, leaving them curious and intrigued. Meanwhile, in a fast food chain Burger King in Scotland, a group of people is also engrossed in watching the scene on TV. A black woman in middle age is intently focused on the broadcast until she is interrupted by someone calling her. The person excitedly reveals that she has secretively bought tickets for the Justin Bieber concert, urging her to leave soon. The black middle-aged woman, delighted, calls her adorable nugget and agrees to leave for the concert. In Moscow, two individuals are watching the screens. The pink-haired man mentions that he has never seen the braided man before, while the yellow-haired man believes that the braided man might be superhuman. The pink-haired man, displaying annoyance, expresses that he doesn't care about that and thinks the braided man looks like an unpleasant person. The yellow-haired man concurs, stating that the braided man does indeed appear unlikable. Back in Incheonport, Lim Kang responded to the braided man with a nonchalant, "So what?" He made it clear that he didn't care whether the braided man was superhuman or not and told him not to follow him anymore. Ignoring the braided man's attempt to speak further, Lim Kang walked away, feeling hungry. The braided man mentioned meeting Lim Kang at his school to continue their conversation. Lim Kang froze and looked back in surprise, while Jurai questioned what was said. The braided man then asked, "Aren't you a student if you're not wearing your mask?" Lim Kang was taken aback, recalling his school days, wondering how the man knew this personal detail. Laughing, the braided man assured them he would keep it a secret, even asking him to relay the message to the pink-haired guy listening through the earpiece. Lim Kang and Jurai were surprised by the man's knowledge of Jurai's identity. The braided man revealed that the pink-haired guy was no ordinary person. He had designed the ultra-small camera hidden in Lim Kang's mask. He found the pink-haired guy intriguing, even resisting the urge to kidnap him. The braided man then teasingly mentioned playing with Jurai while Lim Kang was at school, leaving Jurai shocked and confused about how much the man knew. Laughing again, the braided man looked at Whitecap and wondered if he went too far with his joke, noting the distinct atmosphere surrounding Whitecap. Lim Kang's left hand gently touched his wrist as he contemplated the situation. "I guess it can't be helped," he murmured. Turning to face the braided man and Danyang, he directly asked, "You guys are superhumans, right?" Jurai, sensing the escalating tension, hurriedly stepped in, urging Lim Kang to exercise caution. "Wait, we don't know anything about them," he cautioned. But Lim Kang's determination was unwavering as he ignored Jurai's plea and spoke with a serious and angry tone. "Jurai is like my one and only family. I'm going to make sure that you can never get close to him again." The braided man and Danyang couldn't help but notice Lim Kang's resolve, and their alertness heightened in response. Despite the tension, the braided man found amusement in the situation, letting out a chuckle. Now I didn't think you'd get this mad," he remarked, attempting to de-escalate the situation by suggesting they could converse without hostility. Lim Kang, however, remained firm in his stance. "I don't care," he replied, his determination echoing in his voice. The atmosphere crackled with an impending clash as the braided man responded, "Well, if that's your choice, I guess it can't be helped. We'll have to fight." The air crackled with anticipation as the confrontation seemed inevitable, and the enigmatic clash between these superhumans was about to unfold. Lim Kang wasted no time, launching himself toward the braided man in a swift and unexpected attack. The spectators were taken aback, and even the soldier's captain was surprised by the sudden turn of events. As Lim Kang's powerful punch neared its target, the braided man calmly raised both hands to intercept the blow. A powerful gust of smoke and wind erupted from the impact, obscuring the scene. When the smoke finally cleared, Lim Kang and Jurai were left stunned to see that the braided man had effortlessly stopped Lim Kang's punch. Refusing to be deterred, Lim Kang swiftly twisted his body to launch another attack, but to his astonishment, the braided man seemed to vanish into thin air before him. Lim Kang's fist found hit nothing but space as the braided man reappeared, landing gracefully on Lim Kang's right arm in a resting squat position. With a hint of amusement in his voice, the braided man remarked, "Wow, you're at Sundeer. You came at me like you were going to kill me, but you still pulled your punches." He then leaped backward, keeping a safe distance from Lim Kang. The braided man's eyes glowed with a menacing red as he taunted Lim Kang, challenging him to fight without holding back. He mocked Lim Kang for showing generosity in a fight, calling him a fool. The braided man reiterated that he was a superhuman, just like Lim Kang, and dared him to come at him with all his might if he didn't want to die. Lim Kang remained silent, his expression serious and contemplative. He carefully considered the braided man's words, knowing that engaging in a battle right now could lead to catastrophic consequences. The threat of the entire place being blown to smithereens was not something to be taken lightly. Jurai stepped in, urging Lim Kang to stay calm and agreeing that the braided man's words held some truth. He reminded Lim Kang that there was nothing to gain from fighting them. Jurai shared his unease about the mysterious appearance of the superhumans, particularly how they seemed to know their identities. He acknowledged that they were facing an unknown and powerful foe, and fighting blindly wouldn't be wise. Instead, Jurai proposed that they find a way to defuse the situation and give themselves time to think and strategize. He believed that, for the moment, they had no choice but to trust the braided man's claim that he wasn't their enemy. It was a difficult decision, but Jurai felt it was the best course of action. The braided man looked at Lim Kang and stood there without saying anything. He smiled and said it seemed like you got the gist of it, as he no longer seemed interested in fighting. The braided man mentioned they would meet again and talk more then. As he was about to leave, Lim Kang asked him to wait and inquired about his name. Lim Kang said he wouldn't let him go unless he revealed his name. The braided man introduced himself as Nan Gai and then walked away to join his companion, Danyang. Nan Gai told Danyang they were done talking and suggested they leave. Danyang asked if Nan Gai wanted her to check his arms, and he paused, remembering their earlier clash when he stopped Lim Kang's punch. With a laugh, Nan Gai replied that his arms were not that bad, and they both disappeared from the scene. Meanwhile, the people watching the broadcast in the United States expect a spectacular showdown, only to witness an anticlimactic end. In Moscow, the pink-haired man expressed frustration, exclaiming, "What, it's over?" The yellow-haired man responded, "It appears that way." The pink-haired man was annoyed and retorted, "Appears that way, my ass. After all that waiting." The yellow-haired man offered his insight, explaining that it was still unknown why White Cap took a swing at the braided man, but they likely decided not to fight due to the potential destruction of the surrounding area and potential casualties. He guessed that the two backed off after considering these consequences. As the pink-haired man left the room and slammed the door, he grumbled, "God damn it, those boring bastards, are they just fooling around?" Back at Incheon Port, the two people whom Lim Kang saved expressed their heartfelt gratitude to him. They mentioned that they had been in a dire situation and were almost beyond hope before he came to their rescue. They asked Lim Kang how they could repay him for his heroic act. Wanting to repay him, the man among them suggested that they would love to treat him to a meal at a place known for its delicious pork belly soup as a way of saying thank you. Lim Kang replied, "That's okay." Then departed from the scene. After White Cap's departure, the captain of the soldiers wasted no time in giving orders to his troops. He urgently instructed them to dispatch the Inhuman Corpse recovery team immediately, emphasizing the need for efficiency. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers named B was in deep thought, examining the bullet on his gauntlet. He expressed his concerns about the weapon he used. He explained that the issue wasn't merely the bullet's shape or weight, and even changing the gunpowder composition wouldn't significantly alter its performance. Despite the rifle being an extremely high caliber, specially designed for armor-piercing rounds, B regarded it as nothing more than an ordinary long-range precision rifle. Frustrated, he squeezed the bullet in his hand until it flattened, emphasizing his point that such weaponry was insufficient in the face of more formidable foes. He also added that they needed something revolutionary, a game changer, to stand a chance against the unknown threats they were facing. Without such advancements, he feared that their efforts would be in vain, leading to a meaningless loss of life. Understanding the gravity of the situation, the captain acknowledged B's concerns and assured him that he would relay the message to the ISSTF, International Superhuman Security Task Force, researchers. Suddenly, the captain's phone rang, and he quickly checked the caller ID to see that it was Commander Biko Jin, the head of the Inhuman Subjugation Special Task Force. He greeted the commander with a respectful salutation as he answered the call. On the other end, Commander Biko Jin inquired about the situation, and the captain promptly informed him that the white-cap superhuman had just left the scene. Commander Biko Jin, watching the events unfold on TV, expressed his frustration with the captain, stating that he had instructed him to report as soon as the mission was over. The captain apologized, explaining that he was just about to call when the commander interrupted him, insisting that he listen carefully. The commander reiterated the importance of safely transporting the inhuman corpse. He reassured the captain that he had already taken care of coordinating with the NFS, National Forensic Service, and other national agencies for this matter. He instructed the captain to focus solely on putting the corpse into Transport Vehicle 101 as planned. The captain acknowledged the orders with a firm "yes, sir," and confirmed that the transport vehicle was already present and the corpse was being loaded. Commander Biko Jin reminded the captain that their responsibility would end as soon as the inhuman corpse was loaded and the ISSTF retreated from the scene. The captain affirmed his understanding with another "yes, sir," even though his facial expression revealed annoyance and irritation towards the commander's blunt manner. After Commander Biko Jin ended his call with the captain, he dialed another number, and someone on the other end picked up, asking if it was something urgent. Biko Jin replied, "Not exactly. I just wanted to give you a report on the situation regarding an inhuman crisis. The casualties amounted to 14 dead, 2 in critical condition, and..." Before he could finish his sentence, the person on the call interrupted, expressing irritation, "Listen here. I don't care about all that. What's wrong with you?" Biko Jin responded, "I just wanted to give you an overall report." The person on the call, uninterested in details, demanded, "Just give me a summary." Biko Jin complied and informed them that the transport vehicle carrying the inhuman corpse would be leaving for the Falcon area soon. Curious about the arrival time, the person on the call inquired further while his assistant fumbled with setting his watch. Biko Jin replied, "Tomorrow night." And additionally, before he could finish his sentence, the man's assistant urgently interrupted, informing him that it was time to go. In response, the man on the call responded, all right, I have to give a speech. So hang up." The man gets irritated and issues a warning to Biko Jin to not waste his time with useless information and emphasized that it was his final warning. Biko Jin quickly apologized, then the call ended. The man behind the phone continued to complain while adjusting his tie, "What's up with these guys? What's the point in telling me how many people died?" He let out a frustrated sigh and muttered, "I already want to gag from needing to speak in front of these dirty fucking ants." After straightening his tie, he cleared his throat and composed himself. Then the man proceeded to walk out from backstage. A multitude of people eagerly awaited his speech. The master of ceremonies announced, "The hope of the new generation, the forerunner of a peaceful world and a revolutionary future. Everyone, let me introduce you to Marcus Gerald." With a confident smile, Marcus raised his hands in front of the enthusiastic crowd on the stage. Back in Incheon Port, the inhuman corpse had been securely loaded into the transport vehicle, and it was ready for takeoff. As they watched the vehicle, one of the soldiers remarked, "Wow, they left immediately after loading the corpse." Curiosity piqued, he turned to his captain and asked about Transport Vehicle 101, wondering what it was. The captain's response was simple, "It's exactly what it sounds like, a transport vehicle." The soldier pressed further, asking if it was part of the ISSTF, Inhuman Subjugation Special Task Force. The captain shook his head, "No, it's not. We don't need to know the specifics. Just focus on our mission." As the vehicle departed from the port, unbeknownst to the soldiers, Nangai, the braided man, along with Danyang, had been hiding behind a cargo container, observing the scene. Nan Guy's deduction proved correct, and he murmured to himself, as expected, is it heading to Falcon? The next day, Lim Kang found himself sitting on the floor, eagerly watching his favorite show, Ketchup Man, which had just finished its latest episode. He couldn't contain his excitement, exclaiming, how am I supposed to wait till next week for the new episode? As Jurai woke up from his snooze behind Lim Kang, he couldn't help but ask what all the fuss was about. He wondered how Lim Kang wasn't tired, despite the intense fight they had the day before, and jokingly remarked, really, watching Ketchup Man first thing in the morning? Lim Kang replied that he had to watch the premiere. He looked amazed while talking to Jurai, describing how fantastic the episode was, and he urged Jurai to watch the rerun as well. However, before he could spoil the episode, Jurai asked him to stop. Lim Kang felt flushed while sitting on the floor because he kept remembering Nan Guy's words about him being similar to Ketchup Man. He couldn't help but grumble, that bastard, which part of me is similar to Ketchup Man? Hearing this, Jurai responded, you've said that over 100 times now. I'm going to get more sleep. Jurai also reminded Lim Kang that school wasn't cancelled that day and classes were resuming because the Inhuman threat had been defeated. Lim Kang was shocked that Jurai was telling him this only now and asked why. Jurai replied nonchalantly, it's because I forgot. The school had announced a resumption of classes since the Inhuman had been defeated and the danger had passed. Without wasting any time, Lim Kang quickly changed his clothes and left the room in a rush. Jurai, feeling a bit hassled by the sudden commotion, called after him, at least close the door. Lim Kang was walking to Incheon school when he overheard two students engaged in a heated discussion about Whitecap. One student argued that Whitecap was owned by the braided man because he had easily blocked Whitecap's punch. The other student disagreed, pointing out that just because the braided man blocked the punch didn't mean Whitecap was defeated. Meanwhile, the argument between the two students escalated, with one of them calling Whitecap the best and the other dismissing the other student as a mere keyboard warrior. The discussion turned into a heated exchange of insults, and it seemed like a fight might break out between them. Suddenly, as one of the students swung his fist in anger, he realized that he had accidentally hit someone else passing by. The student who got hit looked furious and threatened to beat them up. The two students who had been arguing earlier apologized profusely, recognizing the student they hit as Choi Tae-ik, a member of the infamous Gundu gang. Choi Tae-ik was annoyed by the morning altercation and warned them. He even threatened to dig their eyes out. Lim Kang, who had been watching silently, caught Choi Tae-ik's attention with his blank stare, but he didn't say anything in response. Choi Tae-ik, feeling irritated by Lim Kang's reaction, called him an asshole and told him to stop staring. Lim Kang merely looked away and muttered a quick apology. Choi Tae-ik sighed in exasperation and vowed to remember their faces, especially Lim Kang's. He walked away, expressing frustration at the school's chaotic environment. The two students who had been arguing earlier were now frightened by the encounter with Choi Tae-ik and expressed regret for not being aware of the presence of the gang at Seoyeon High. They decided to stay clear of the Gundu gang and just become a fly in the wall. Inside Class 1 Section 3, a female student was trying to wake up another student wearing a yellow jacket. Startled, the yellow jacket student asked, "What is it? Why did you spook me like that?" The concerned girl named Yeon Jin-ju asked her to quit boxing, expressing worry about her self-harm. The student in the yellow jacket retorted, "Why do you keep coming to my class just to pester me? Are you my mom or something?" Undeterred, the female student continued to gaze at the yellow jacket student, who remained defiant. Just then, their attention was diverted by a passerby, Lim Kang, who walked past them on his way to his seat. Yeon Jin-ju called out to him, and Lim Kang responded with a simple "what?" She then alerted him that his fly was open, causing Lim Kang to pause awkwardly while he quickly fixed his pants zipper. The yellow jacket student tried to sneak a look, smirking at the humorous scene. As Yeon Jin-ju prepared to leave, she commented Lim Kang was cute to her friend. The yellow jacket student just rolled her eyes and sarcastically told her to leave and not come back. She also couldn't resist making a snide remark about Yeon Jin-ju smelling like cigarettes and advised her to stop hanging out with certain people. Unfazed, Yeon Jin-ju retorted, "What are you, my mom?" Before exiting the classroom. She left a parting offer, saying that if the yellow jacket student quit boxing, she would consider her request. The yellow jacket student, whose name was revealed to be Hong Mu-hee, remained silent and considered Yeon Jin-ju's words with irritation. Meanwhile, Lim Kang, who, still fixing his zipper, felt a bit embarrassed by the whole situation and muttered to himself, "Why now?" Hong Yu-hee watched him with an amused smirk, silently thinking that he was an idiot. She crossed her arms and adopted a sleeping position at her desk, sighing while smiling. In the middle of the vast Atlantic Ocean, two fishermen were aboard a small fishing boat, engaged in casual conversation. One of the fishermen excitedly talked about his daughter's upcoming birthday and how he had bought her a small penguin doll at a cheap price from the port. His friend questioned the choice of the gift, suggesting that if he wanted to get something pretty for his princess, a penguin might not be the best option. In response, the father explained that his daughter's dream was to visit Antarctica and see real penguins, so he thought she would appreciate the doll. He mentioned that he would be heading straight home after his shift, as he spent most of his time living on the boat and feared his daughter might forget his face. His friend chuckled, asking if she had told him that herself. The father proudly confirmed that she was growing up quickly and could say all sorts of things now. Reflecting on his daughter's growth, he felt a pang of regret, realizing that he had never gotten her a proper gift before. Sensing his friend's sincerity, the other fisherman suggested getting his daughter a doll as well. But the father considered her age and decided against it, insisting that the penguin doll was a fitting choice. He advised his friend to bring the doll inside the boat to keep it from getting wet. Suddenly, a splash in the water caught one fisherman's attention, and he noticed a dark shadow lurking beneath the smooth surface. Intrigued, he tried to get a better look, but his excitement turned to horror when a long arm emerged from the water and a monstrous fish-like creature revealed itself. Panicking, the fisherman let out a horrified scream, alerting his friend at the boat's helm. Before the helmsman could react, the boat shook violently, and he saw his friend crushed beneath the feet of the monstrous sea creature. Frozen in fear, the surviving fisherman could only watch in shock and terror as the deadly sea monster stood before him, its presence instilling overwhelming dread. Back at Seoyin High School in Incheon, the teacher led a discussion about the increasing appearances of Inhumans. He drew a crude sketch of an Inhuman on the board, emphasizing that these creatures were not to be underestimated. They possessed unreal strength, were capable of destroying heavy machinery in a single blow, and could dash at incredible speeds. Moreover, Inhumans seemed instinctively driven to attack and murder humans, making them a grave threat. The teacher presented grim statistics of Inhuman incidents worldwide and mentioned that Korea had experienced a total of 7 Inhuman appearances, including the recent tragedy at Incheon port. However, in the past 5 incidents, a mysterious superhuman known as White Cap had appeared and managed to defeat the Inhumans. As the teacher continued his lecture, Lim Kang on the other hand sounded asleep, drooling heavily. The teacher continued discussing 2 incidents that preceded the appearance of White Cap. The 2015 Pohang incident, where an Inhuman was found dead after what seemed like a battle, and the tragic 2016 Gangneung incident, where a powerful Inhuman named Heptahorn remained undefeated. Witnesses recalled a long-haired man battling the Heptahorn, but disappearing mysteriously. The teacher theorized that the long-haired man, suspected to be superhuman, was possibly murdered by the Heptahorn, who was now in hiding. The teacher stressed the importance of understanding the connection between these incidents, the identity of the long-haired man and White Cap, and the origin of Inhumans. Unfortunately, his students were not paying attention, they had all fallen asleep during the lecture. Frustrated, the teacher shouted at his drowsy students to wake up since the bells were about to ring. He urged them to take an interest in current events and society, reminding them that studying and test scores weren't everything. He implored them to engage with the world and be aware of the challenges humanity faced. When the teacher left the classroom, Hong Yu-hee was in deep thought contemplating about the events happening. As the teacher drove in his car, he received a call from his wife. She asked about his day, and he informed her that he had just finished his class and was on his way home after giving his students a talk. His wife seemed concerned, wondering why he left early. He reassured her, saying, "What are you talking about? Of course, I have to get there early. It's the anniversary of our son's death." As they continued their conversation, the husband's emotions welled up, and tears began to flow down his cheeks. He looked at a picture of his son in his car, reminiscing about the young life lost. His heart was heavy with grief and sadness. He muttered to himself, "Dad needs to pray so you won't meet any monsters in heaven." Meanwhile, back in the small fishing boat, the tense atmosphere was shattered as the Inhuman smashed the remaining fishermen. With incredible strength, the Inhuman held its head high with just one arm. Despite being injured and struggling to speak, the fisherman managed to call for help, pleading for assistance through the damaged radiophone. However, the communication was cut short, leaving the fisherman's distress signal unanswered. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the ocean, aboard the Royal Utopia cruise SS Opera, passengers were enjoying their time in the pool. Amidst a joyous atmosphere, the ship's captain and crew were caught off guard by a mysterious distress signal that came through earlier but was abruptly cut off. They realized that they were the recipients of the radiophone message from the fishing boat. The ship's automated identification system indicated that it was a fishing boat in need of help. The captain wasted no time and sought more information, asking for the name of the ship and its distance from their current position. However, due to the sudden signal loss, they couldn't ascertain the fishing boat's name. Nonetheless, the crew confirmed that the ship in distress was around 10 nautical miles away, opposite to their planned course, but just 25 minutes away by their current route. Urgently, the captain ordered a change of course and preparations for a swift rescue operation. Back in the fishing boat, amidst the aftermath of the Inhumans' attack, a penguin doll lay beside the fisherman's body. Meanwhile, someone, presumably a crew member or passenger, stood watchfully, awaiting the arrival of the luxury cruise ship. The scene was back in Seoyin High School, where students were lining up in the cafeteria for food. Among them, two students engaged in a conversation. One of them expressed his hunger, to which the other student replied with a request to stop talking about it. The hungry student then explained that his mom isn't giving him much food because he recently gained weight. The other student responded, "If you have a conscience, don't say recently. Anyways, why doesn't our class have any cuties to date?" The first student retorted, "I think the girls would say the same thing about you." Annoyed, the second student warned, "If you keep talking like that, you'll see what happens." The conversation shifted, and the second student mentioned that they were fortunate with their class placements, as students in higher-numbered classes were facing difficulties. When asked why, the student referred to the infamous Gundu gang, stating that most of the gang members and their lackeys were placed in the higher-numbered classes, making their class relatively lucky. As one of the students looked behind them, he noticed a smug-faced student who was a member of the Gundu gang. Angrily, he remarked, "Those bastards think they're so great. Well, we do have one of those fuckers in our class as well, a fucking lackey who acts like he's all that, thanks to the gang." One of the two students recognized a familiar face among the crowd, Kwon Chul, a former classmate from middle school. Curiosity getting the better of him, he turned to his friend and inquired whether Kwon Chul had the potential to take down the infamous Gundu gang. The friend replied, acknowledging Kwon Chul's remarkable strength, but mentioning that he hadn't been the best fighter in their middle school. This statement sparked a rebuttal from the other student, who insisted that it wasn't a matter of ability. Instead, he revealed that Kwon Chul despised being involved in fights and only engaged in them when necessary. The friend added that Kwon Chul had once disintegrated Park Gum-bo, the notorious bully of their middle school, who had foolishly picked a fight out of jealousy towards Kwon Chul's good looks. Amidst the conversations, one of the students requested the server. He asked for an extra serving of spicy pork to be placed on top of his rice. The server kindly suggested adding some soup as well, but the student declined, explaining that he didn't like soybean soup. Instead, he politely asked for a bit more spicy pork, to which the server happily obliged, showing care and affection for the students. In a playful moment, the student teasingly asked the server if he could call her mom just once. However, his friend playfully kicked him, reminding him to keep moving. In the same cafeteria, Lim Kang sat alone at a table, devouring his food hurriedly, seemingly oblivious to his surroundings. Suddenly, a friendly face appeared next to him, greeted him with a warm hi, and questioned why he always ate alone. Lost in his thoughts, Lim Kang pondered over his situation, unsure of what to say. Kwon Chul empathized, mentioning that he, too, ate alone every day because he lacked friends in their class. Curious, he asked Lim Kang if he was in a similar situation. Lim Kang's mind thought of Jurai before admitting that he, too, didn't have any friends. Kwon Chul remarked, "You're pretty lonely too, huh?" Casually observing Lim Kang's well-built physique, Kwon Chul inquired if he was involved in any sports. Lim Kang shared that he practiced self-learned taekwondo. Kwon Chul grinned and playfully remarked on his choice. Despite their initial solitary dining experiences, Kwon Chul proposed that they eat together from then on, to which Lim Kang gladly agreed. As they were engrossed in their conversation, their peace was abruptly shattered when a loud thud echoed through the cafeteria. Startled, they turned to witness a shocking sight: a student being sent flying right in front of them. The notorious Gundu gang, led by Choi Tae-ik, had made their intimidating presence known. With a menacing stride, the gang approached the fallen student, demanding he move out of their way faster. They taunted him, asking if he'd budge only if they beat him up. The terrified student quickly apologized, hoping to avoid any further harm. A particularly aggressive gang member sneered at the apology, mocking the beaten student and his friends for being fucking retards who couldn't handle someone cutting the line. Choi Tae-ik, the leader of the gang, interjected with a tinge of frustration, admitting that he was struggling to control his anger lately. The onlookers watched the tense scene unfold with a mix of fear and disbelief. Kwon Chul, observing the gang with disdain, despised their bullying tactics, while Lim Kang, seemingly unfazed, continued eating his food without any reaction. In a chilling declaration, Choi Tae-ik announced that he had had enough. He declared that he would take a quick look around and beat up 5 guys whose looks he didn't like. In the United States, an emergency meeting was underway with the Secretary of Defense. His frustration was evident as he held his head, feeling helpless in the face of a dire situation. He expressed his concern, questioning how much longer they had to wait when so many lives were at stake. Another person in the meeting empathized with him, acknowledging the gravity of the situation, but emphasized that they had no choice but to remain composed and patient. Before the person could finish their sentence, the tension in the room escalated as the door swung open, and 2 individuals, Ms. St. Pearl and Mr. Galen Withrow, entered the meeting. Pearl inquired that they haven't heard anything about the situation yet. The urgency of the matter was emphasized by one of the attendees, emphasizing that every second was crucial. The man continued, stating that he would provide more details on their way, but summarized that an unimaginable worst-case scenario had unfolded. The gravity of the situation was reflected in Pearl's serious expression as she listened intently. She asked the man to clarify the nature of the worst scenario. In response, the man disclosed that a cruise ship named SS Opera, carrying 3,000 people, had come under attack by an inhuman entity in the middle of the vast ocean. Upon hearing the alarming news about the attack on the cruise ship, both St. Pearl and Galen Withrow were immediately on high alert. Pearl expressed her distress at the situation, recognizing the severity of the predicament. Withrow concurred, noting that all the passengers aboard were now trapped in a dire situation, akin to being cornered rats. He emphasized that it was indeed the worst-case scenario they could have imagined. As the gravity of the situation weighed on everyone in the room, James, one of the men present, began to express another concern, but before he could finish, Pearl interjected, apologizing for cutting him off. She urged them to hurry and assured him that they could discuss the details on the way. With a serious and determined expression, Pearl turned and announced, "Let's go." Galen Withrow followed her lead. The urgency in their movements was evident as they made their way out of the room. Secretary James informed them that the helicopter was ready for their departure. Before they left, he inquired if the secretary had any final words for them. The secretary simply replied, "No, I don't. Come back safe." As the 3 of them exited the room, James responded with an affirmative "Okay, sir." Once they were gone, the room fell silent and the secretary let out a deep sigh. His thoughts were consumed by the encounter with these extraordinary individuals, the Superhumans. He couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of trepidation, evident in the cold sweat that dampened his body. In an abandoned building, Nangai and Danyang found themselves discussing the recent media frenzy surrounding their encounter with White Cap. Danyang mentioned how everyone was researching them and even put up a bounty for information. Nangai found amusement in the situation and jokingly suggested that they should confront the media and ask them what they did wrong to deserve such attention. However, Danyang was less lighthearted about the matter and expressed concern over their revealing themselves during a live broadcast. He questioned the decision and its consequences. Nangai, seemingly unbothered, continued reading the newspaper, dismissing the significance of the media attention. Nangai cryptically hinted that there was a reason they made it to the news, but he would explain it later. He then stood up and stated that the situation had become too intriguing for him to ignore. He seemed excited by the impending chaos in the world and contemplated which side would be more enjoyable to join. Nangai also added that a game would only be fun if it's balanced. On their way to the helicopter, James, Pearl, and Withrow were preparing for their mission to rescue the SS Opera. James felt a sense of apprehension, comparing the journey to heading to his funeral. He noticed that Pearl and Withrow had not fastened their seatbelts and hesitantly asked if they found them uncomfortable. However, he quickly realized his mistake and felt foolish for forgetting that they were superhumans who didn't need seatbelts. As they took off in the LC-100 helicopter, James marveled at the speed and efficiency of the aircraft. He explained to Pearl and Withrow that they were about 500 miles away from the SS Opera and estimated it would take around 2 hours to reach the ship. He shared the details of the distress signal received by the Navy base in Virginia, indicating that the SS Opera was under attack by an Inhuman. The luxury cruise ship was carrying 2,500 passengers and 500 crew members, and the Navy requested Pearl's help immediately. James revealed that a total of 5 squads between the ISSTF and UT were deployed to the scene, but communication was lost within 20 minutes of their arrival, suggesting that all 5 squads might have been annihilated. The gravity of the situation was evident, and Pearl and Withrow looked serious and concerned. James continued to explain that there was an even bigger problem. The SS Opera was on autopilot, programmed to arrive in Florida. If the cruise ship reached land, the Inhuman threat would be unleashed on populated areas. As a result, the government approved the deployment of F-40 fighter jets equipped with miniature nuclear missiles to destroy the ship before it could reach the coast. Pearl and Withrow were angered by this plan, but James defended it as the government's best course of action, given the dire situation. He expressed concern about the unknown number of survivors on the ship and the chaos unfolding on board. Pearl reassured James that they shouldn't be pessimistic because she was here now. The scene at Seoyeon High School's cafeteria was tense and chaotic. Choi Tae-ik, one of the squad leaders of the Gundu gang, had just violently confronted an injured student, displaying his aggressive and volatile nature. However, his actions were interrupted by a courageous girl named Hong Moo-hee, who stood up to the gang and demanded they stop. Her boldness shocked everyone present, as it was unusual for anyone to challenge the notorious gang. While the cafeteria was in disarray, Lim Kang and Kwon Chul observed the situation from their respective positions. Lim Kang remained nonchalant, unaffected by the events unfolding before him, and continued to eat his food. Kwon Chul, on the other hand, paused and watched the confrontation closely. Hong Moo-hee's defiance didn't sit well with Choi Tae-ik, and he retaliated by slapping her. However, before he could reach his strike to her, Kwon Chul intervened and stopped his hand. The rumors about Kwon Chul's strength turned out to be true, as he stood up to the gang fearlessly. The other gang members were perplexed by this new development, questioning who Kwon Chul was. Some students in the cafeteria speculated that Kwon Chul might be taking on the Gundu gang. Choi Tae-ik was infuriated by Kwon Chul's resistance, but despite his anger, he found it hard to defeat him in a fight. Amidst the escalating situation, another member of the Gundu gang, Nam Gung-mu, one of the 3 heads of the gang, arrived and ordered them to stop the fight. He warned Choi Tae-ik that a teacher was on the way and it was time to back off. As the gang was about to leave, Nam Gung-mu acknowledged that he had heard about Kwon Chul before, implying that he was aware of Kwon Chul's reputation. He threatened Kwon Chul, saying he'd deal with him later. Once the gang departed, the other students in the cafeteria discussed their fear of the Gundu gang and their intimidating presence. Meanwhile, Lim Kang, who had finished eating, let out a loud burp, surprising those around him and quickly covering his mouth to avoid drawing attention. In the helicopter, James informs Pearl and Withrow that they have reached their destination and notes the gloomy situation below. Pearl requests to open the door for their descent, and James expresses concern about their safety, given they are 1,000 feet above the ground. Pearl reassures him, and James hands them earpieces to maintain communication during the operation. He explains that the earpieces are activated through biometrics, ensuring uninterrupted contact as long as they are safe. James volunteers to act as a middleman, relaying their locations, situation updates, and any abnormalities. Pearl, standing at the helicopter door, instructs James to inform the higher-ups that they have arrived and to call off the nuclear threat. James acknowledges her request and expresses his well wishes as Pearl and Withrow prepare to jump from the helicopter onto the ship's deck. As they land, Pearl and Withrow observe the chaotic scene with bodies everywhere. Withrow notes the impact marks, indicating that the victims were killed instantly, likely by an Inhuman. Pearl agrees, emphasizing the brutality of the attack that left no survivors. Inside the ship, a monstrous figure fixates its gaze on Pearl from a distance. The gruesome aftermath of its attack is evident, with dead bodies scattered around. The Inhuman emits stammering sounds in an unknown language. James communicates through the earpiece, requesting a moment to share important information about the cruise ship. He explains that the ship is extremely large, with different layouts on each floor, making it easy to get lost. Unless the Inhuman approach them first, it might be challenging to find it. Withrow ponders if making a ruckus would lure the creature out. Pearl agrees with the idea of splitting up to cover more ground. James suggests that one of them head straight forward to the engine room on the upper level, while the other goes below to the cargo area. They can then move toward each other, searching for survivors and defeating the Inhuman if they encounter it. He expresses concern that fighting separately could lead to one-on-one battles, but Pearl acknowledges that they need to choose the quickest option. Withrow volunteers to take the upper level, and Pearl says to alert each other if they enter combat. Pearl then jumps into the side of the ship and creates a hole to enter. After Pearl successfully enters, she arrived in the cargo area in B4. James contacts her to check on the situation. Pearl responds that she can't discern anything yet and hasn't encountered any people. She notes that there are no bodies in her vicinity and everything appears to be normal. However, she feels the need to continue searching to gather more information. Meanwhile, James contacts Withrow, who seems to be quite far into the ship. He asks about the situation on his end. Withrow replies that he hasn't come across anything new since entering, only finding lifeless bodies. He recounts exploring the bridge, control room, and information center, where he encountered only dead people, creating a haunting and disturbing scene. James remarks that the Inhuman hasn't revealed itself, almost as if it's playing a game of hide and seek. However, the communication between James and Withrow starts to encounter interference, and they struggle to hear each other. James realizes that their communication problems may be due to their proximity to the Bermuda Triangle, a location infamous for its mysterious occurrences, and he becomes increasingly concerned. He understands the critical importance of maintaining communication, especially since they are separated and exploring the unknown dangerous ship. Meanwhile, Withrow contemplates removing the earpiece due to excessive static interference. As he walks amidst a grim scene of numerous dead bodies, he suddenly becomes alerted to the presence of a survivor. Withrow quickly contacts James to inform him about the discovery. The survivor, a middle-aged man, appears to be in a state of shock and trauma. He mumbles to himself, expressing disbelief and fear, claiming that his wife was a monster and a demon. Withrow watches the survivor closely, his mind filled with contemplation and concern. He wonders if the survivor's mental state has been shattered by the overwhelming fear and horror he has experienced. Back in the helicopter, James becomes increasingly frustrated as he realizes that the communication devices are practically useless. Despite being able to track Pearl and Withrow's locations, the static interference prevents any clear communication between them. James laments the fact that the only support he could provide for them were the earpieces, which now seem inadequate in this critical moment. Meanwhile, at the cargo area, Pearl attempts to contact James and Withrow, but faces difficulties due to the malfunctioning comms, which she attributes to the weather conditions. Suddenly, a voice calls her name from behind, and she turns to find a young girl hiding. The girl asks if she is Saint Pearl, the superhuman, and wonders if Pearl has come to save them. Pearl confirms her identity and purpose, though she clarifies that she is not a Mrs. In Withrow's location, he comes across a door stained with blood. Upon opening it, he finds himself in the event hall, where a strong stench of blood permeates the air. While trying to investigate and fix his earpiece, Withrow is taken aback when he spots someone standing before him at Saint Pearl. Confused by her presence on the upper level when he believed she was in the lower area, Withrow calls out to Pearl. However, something seems off as he notices her eyes glowing red. Suddenly, Pearl transforms into a menacing Inhuman and launches an attack on Withrow. Despite his attempts to dodge, he sustains injuries, with the Inhuman biting off his arm. Withrow finds himself in a state of shock and confusion as he struggles to comprehend the situation unfolding before him. Withrow quickly runs for cover, attempting to escape the relentless attacks of the monster. He hides behind a pillar, reflecting on his carelessness and acknowledging that he was almost caught off guard and could have lost his life. Withrow bites his lip in frustration, trying to make sense of the situation. He wonders if the Inhuman is a mimic capable of copying Pearl's appearance, but the level of killing power it possesses is far beyond his expectations. As the Inhuman continues its assault, Withrow manages to dodge and evade its attacks. He observes the transformation of the Inhuman's face, shifting from Pearl's appearance to its true monstrous form. Withrow is astonished that it can truly transform, and the sight leaves him in disbelief. With determination, Withrow retaliates against the Inhuman, using his leg to send it flying. However, the Inhuman remains unscathed, standing up as if the attack had no effect. Withrow observes its true form, a face resembling Pearl's and a fish-like creature embedded in its stomach and chest. Withrow decides to take action, removing his cape to stop the bleeding from his amputated arm. He confronts the Inhuman with anger, demanding it give back his arm. Back in the helicopter, James continues to grumble about the malfunctioning earpiece, but he's relieved that at least the radar is still functional. He closely observes the radar readings and notices that Mr. Withrow's movements appear erratic and unusual, suggesting that he might be engaged in combat or facing some kind of threat. As the storm outside intensifies, the pilot alerts him to the worsening weather conditions. James acknowledges the pilot's warning and suggests landing the helicopter on the deck of the ship. Back in the low-level cargo area, the small girl guides Pearl to a hiding spot where many survivors are taking refuge. Pearl takes in the sight of the frightened and desperate people and asks who they are. In response, the survivors explain that they are passengers who managed to survive the Inhumans' attack and have been hiding in different places on the lower level of the ship. Pearl realizes the urgency of the situation, knowing that there are many lives at stake. She knows she needs to act quickly to ensure the safety of these survivors. Among the frightened crowd, one of the survivors musters the courage to speak up and implores Pearl to save everyone if she can. The survivor understands it's a difficult request, but their desperation for safety and hope is evident in their plea. Back on the upper level, the intense battle between Withrow and the Inhuman continues. The Inhuman leaps and launches a ferocious attack, while Withrow valiantly defends himself with his remaining arm. The Inhuman refuses to relent, relentlessly striking at Withrow, who, despite his amputated arm, manages to fend off the blows by using his leg to kick the monster's shoulder, locking them in a fierce struggle for dominance. Withrow's body trembles as he struggles to hold his ground, questioning himself if his missing arm is causing him to falter in this intense fistfight. Yet, he remains resolute, refusing to be defeated. Locked in this intense standoff, the Inhuman opens its terrifyingly wide mouth, aiming to bite down on Withrow, but the resourceful fighter reacts swiftly, using his other leg to kick the creature's jaw shut, thwarting the vicious attack. He quickly creates distance by leaping backward, giving himself some breathing room. As he assesses the Inhuman's behavior, Withrow realizes that the creature prefers to maintain its true form during combat, relying on its impeccable shape-shifting abilities only when necessary. Understanding this pattern, Withrow steadies himself for what needs to be done. Releasing a heavy sigh, Withrow becomes more determined than ever to end this relentless battle. His eyes begin to glow with an inner power, and he knows what he must do. Spotting a large barrel of wine nearby, an idea forms in Withrow's mind. With focused determination, he dashes towards the barrel and unleashes a powerful kick, causing the wine to instantaneously freeze into sharp, deadly ice projectiles. The ice shards shoot toward the Inhuman with alarming speed, striking it multiple times. The Inhuman staggers under the barrage of icy onslaught. Capitalizing on the Inhuman's momentary weakness, Withrow seizes a nearby wine bottle and, with a swift motion, shatters it into pieces. In a remarkable display of his abilities, he transforms the broken glass into a lethal ice sword. The ice sword glimmers menacingly in Withrow's hand as he addresses the Inhuman, a mix of frustration and determination in his voice. He expresses regret for not being in the mood for games and makes it abundantly clear that he will hold nothing back in this critical moment. With his eyes still glowing with power, Withrow points the ice sword towards the Inhuman, prepared to unleash the full extent of his strength and put an end to this battle once and for all. Then a flashback was shown, revealing Withrow's background before he joined Pearl. In a room filled with monitors and double-sided mirrors, a group of men was discussing a man named Galen Withrow from East Harlem. One of the men, James, a former CIA international lawyer, remarked on Withrow's sharp gaze and the fact that he single-handedly annihilated the Bloods, an American street gang, without any visible injuries. Another man named Ben, a former Vital Company staff biotech engineer, recalled another incident involving the Safari Street gang, which was arrested after all its members were found knocked out cold. James confirmed that Withrow was responsible for that as well. As they continued to observe, Pearl was seen interrogating Withrow. Pearl acknowledged that Withrow was a superhuman with extraordinary abilities, capable of beating up gangs and withstanding bullets. She urged him not to keep secrets and asked how he performed such feats. Withrow, sitting calmly, activated his powers, causing his eyes to glow. He demonstrated his ability by solidifying Pearl's coffee right before her eyes. Pearl was astonished as she witnessed her liquid coffee turning into a solid state. Withrow then admitted that he couldn't explain how he acquired this power because he didn't know himself. However, he could instantly harden liquids within a 10-meter range around him, and there was no limit to the amount he could harden within that range. He emphasized that he could activate this ability at will, but it required a significant amount of stamina and concentration. Meanwhile, behind the double-sided mirror, James and Ben were taken aback by Withrow's incredible power and his lack of knowledge about its origin. Pearl was intrigued by the strange power they had come across and asked, "Is it like freezing the liquid?" Withrow explained, "It's similar in principle, but the liquid becomes so hard that it's not quite freezing. Its hardness can be compared to diamonds." Pearl turned her coffee cup upside down, remarking, "So, you're saying it even changes the composition? That's hard to believe." Adding on, Pearl said, "Depending on the situation, it can be a powerful weapon. If you harden the liquid and apply great force, it becomes even more potent than most firearms." Back in the present during the intense battle, Withrow swung his hardened wine sword with all his might, managing to blow away half of the Inhuman's head. The creature cried out in pain, speaking in an unknown language, but it quickly retaliated, delivering a powerful punch that sent Withrow flying backward. Gasping for breath and feeling the pain coursing through his body, He gritted his teeth and looked back at the enraged Inhuman. Deep in thought, he realized that he had missed his mark, despite putting all his strength into the attack. He berated himself for not being able to stab the Inhuman properly due to his unbalanced stance. The Inhuman's relentless pursuit showed no sign of slowing down, and as it changed its color to a furious red, Withrow knew he had to think quickly. With a burst of speed, he dodged the Inhuman's next lunge and tried to create distance between them, desperately trying to evade the relentless pursuit. The Inhuman's unyielding pursuit left him contemplating how, despite the severe injury it had sustained, it showed no signs of slowing down. Back in Pearl, she was running fast and pondering that there have been no abnormalities on the 4th or 5th basement levels, and that the place was the same, also the lower floors were unaffected. Although it's weak, she can detect a rumble somewhere. Suddenly her earpiece emitted a jarring noise that she can't understand. She abruptly stopped and tried to communicate with James, but still to no avail, she can only hear broken sentences with the persistent buzzing of radio interference. So she decided to continue moving fast. In the helicopter, James focused on the monitor displaying Withrow's location. He could tell that Withrow was in the midst of a fierce battle, and he couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling that the fight was dragging on for too long. At the same time, he also monitored Pearl's progress. She was getting closer to her destination, but James felt a sense of urgency. He knew she needed to hurry if they were to have any chance of dealing with the dangerous situation. In the upper level, Withrow's vision was already blurry as he desperately tried to escape from the relentless Inhuman. His body ached with exhaustion, and he noticed a water sprinkler on the ceiling nearby. With a flicker of hope, he wondered if triggering it would activate the sprinkler system. Without hesitation, he leaped and delivered a powerful kick to the sprinkler, causing water to pour out in torrents. As the Inhuman closed in on him, Withrow activated his power, causing the water-soaked Inhuman to gradually solidify before him. Despite his success in immobilizing the Inhuman, Withrow couldn't shake the feeling of struggle that he hadn't experienced in a long time. He couldn't help but wonder if his missing arm was the reason behind it. Withrow pondered how to deal with the solidified Inhuman, knowing that it would melt within an hour. However, in a moment of shock and confusion, he felt something inexplicable. To his horror, he saw his own body kneeling on the ground, headless, and realized there was another Inhuman behind him. In the helicopter, James was looking at his screen and was thinking that although it took some time the two will meet up soon, but suddenly Withrow's signal was turned off. James was confused about what happened. He was contemplating why did the radar suddenly turn off. But he notices that only Withrow's signal has disappeared and Pearl's signal still working. He then realizes the worst case. James was sweating heavily and can't believe it while trying to fix something up. As Pearl kicked and destroyed the door, she entered the hall and came face to face with two Inhumans, one still standing and the other solidified. Her eyes fell upon the headless body of Withrow, with his head lying nearby. The sight triggered memories of the past, of happier times when she and Withrow sat in a park, discussing their roles on the team. In that park, Pearl had expressed her gratitude for Withrow joining the team, and she mentioned that James was particularly happy about it. Withrow didn't say much, just silently listening beside her. They talked about the dangers they faced as a team, the unpredictable nature of the Inhuman they encountered, and the importance of keeping their emotions in check during combat. Pearl stressed the significance of retreating if necessary and not letting their emotions lead them to make reckless decisions. She believed that maintaining composure was crucial to performing at their best in any situation. She emphasized the responsibility they carried to protect the world and encouraged seeking help if needed. Withrow, while listening to her, seemed uninterested in sentimentalities. He mentioned that if they faced an opponent even Pearl couldn't defeat, he wouldn't hesitate to retreat, acknowledging his limits. Withrow's demeanor remained aloof as he stood up to leave, stating that he wasn't sentimental and wouldn't be affected, even if Pearl were to die. He made it clear that he would prioritize his survival above all else. Pearl smiled upon hearing Withrow's response, seemingly content with his confidence and determination. Back in the present, Pearl's face was a mix of gloom and rage as she recalled her past conversation with Withrow. The memories of advising him to remain cool in combat now seemed like meaningless words to her. The Inhuman sensed a dangerous aura emanating from Pearl and reacted to her killing intent by changing its color to red, feeling its life was in danger. Pearl charged toward the Inhuman. She moved so fast that lightning was generated in her path, making her movements nearly imperceptible to the naked eye. Her eyes glowed with intensity as she landed a powerful punch on the Inhuman's face, driving her fist deep into its head. As she noticed Withrow's lifeless head nearby, she closed his eyes while the Inhuman prepared to attack her, but she couldn't afford to be deterred. Ignoring the pain caused by the Inhuman's blade-like arm stuck in her shoulder, Pearl's body was now covered in a yellow aura, signifying her heightened state of rage. The Inhuman, sensing her overwhelming power, felt fear and tried to escape. However, Pearl swiftly grabbed its leg, squeezing it with immense strength, and slammed the creature to the ground. The Inhuman was sent flying into the wall, its limb severed, and Pearl still holding onto it. With a determined expression, Pearl walked towards the injured Inhuman, saying that since she started dealing with these garbage Inhumans, it had been the worst day for her. She then broke the severed limb of the Inhuman into two, declaring that she would now follow its method of dealing with enemies. Her voice was filled with cold resolve as she warned the Inhuman not to even imagine how it would meet its end. The Inhuman, desperate to defend itself, digs its limbs into the wall to latch on and strengthen its legs to launch itself towards Pearl. However, her reflexes were lightning fast, and she effortlessly flicked the Inhuman's attack, countering with a powerful uppercut in the chin that broke its fang. Undeterred, Pearl continued her assault, intercepting the Inhuman as it was sent flying and launching another attack, and the last blow was so strong it sent the Inhuman to the pillar and destroyed it. With the Inhuman lying on the ground, its face unrecognizable, Pearl slowly approached it, her rage still palpable. She declared that she intended to make the entire day a living hell for the Inhuman, but it didn't even deserve to be alive long enough to endure her wrath. Her voice was filled with determination as she announced her decision to end its life, commanding the creature to get up and face its final punishment. In a high-stakes meeting, a group of people was discussing the lack of communication from James and the situation with Pearl and Withrow. Speculations and concerns arose, with some suggesting they might have already been defeated. Amid the heated discussion, Marcus Gerald stood out, advocating for immediate action and to proceed with the nuclear missile launch. He argued that they couldn't rely solely on Pearl and Withrow's success in the past and needed to be prepared for any outcome. Others expressed reservations about such drastic measures, considering the potential consequences for the passengers and crew on the ship. Despite the tense exchange, Marcus Gerald urged them to consider the gravity of the situation and the potential risks involved. As the arguments intensified, the president intervened, canceling the strike order and putting an end to the debate. Some members silently agreed with the president's decision, while Marcus Gerald appeared angered by the outcome. Amid the tension, the president's mind drifted back to a past encounter with Pearl. He had personally thanked her for her heroic efforts, but she humbly replied that saving lives couldn't be measured in deaths. Back on Pearl amidst the intense battle, the Inhuman launched a last-ditch attack, shooting webs from its stomach toward her as it lay on the ground, uttering incomprehensible words. Pearl observed the Inhuman's bizarre ability to produce webs, even as it was on the brink of defeat. Meanwhile, the other Inhuman, which had been solidified by Withrow's power, was slowly melting, regaining its mobility. Seizing the opportunity, the second Inhuman stealthily attacked Pearl from behind, sinking its teeth into her shoulder. Pearl was taken aback by the surprise attack and felt a surge of anger when she saw the Inhuman's face mimicking that of her friend Withrow. Calm yet seething with rage, Pearl grabbed the face of the Inhuman that bit her and flung it towards its companion lying on the ground. Despite the odds stacked against her, Pearl's determination remained unwavering. As she tried to break free from the webbing, fueled by her anger, she walked slowly toward the two Inhumans, boiling with anger beneath the surface. Pearl spoke with a mix of resentment and resolve, acknowledging Withrow's imperfections, but defending him fiercely. She declared that Withrow, with his crude demeanor, might not find himself in heaven, but he certainly didn't deserve the torment they were enduring. If the Inhumans ever crossed paths with her friend in the afterlife, she demanded that they beg for forgiveness. With her emotions surging, Pearl's face and body radiated with intense light. Summoning all her strength and fury, she pulled back her fist as far as she could and delivered a tremendous punch toward the Inhumans. The impact of her punch was so powerful that it tore a hole into the ship's structure, and the ensuing light emanated like a laser, illuminating the surroundings. In the helicopter, both the pilot and James were taken aback by the astonishing sight before them. A brilliant light surged from the ship, catching their attention. Without hesitation, James ordered the pilot to open the doors to get a closer look. Stepping out of the helicopter, James couldn't believe what he saw: a massive hole in the ship's structure. As he scanned the scene, his eyes fell upon Pearl emerging from the ship. She moved towards James, and he could see the seriousness in her expression. Pearl told about what had transpired, revealing the fate of Withrow. James was left speechless, struggling to comprehend the devastating news he had just received. Overwhelmed by emotion, tears welled up in James' eyes as he tried to process the loss of his friend and comrade. He felt a profound sadness and sorrow engulfing him, his strength seemingly draining away. James knelt to the ground, unable to hold back his grief as he grappled with the reality of Withrow's fate. In an underground bunker, a group of people gathered for an important meeting. Suddenly, a man rushed into the room after receiving an urgent call. He delivered a message that brought a mixture of relief and concern to the people in the room. The good news is that James and his team have successfully defeated the Inhumans on the ship, the man announced. A sense of rejoicing and celebration filled the room as they had been waiting anxiously for updates on the dangerous situation. However, the mood quickly shifted when the man delivered the bad news. But there's also a tragic loss, he continued somberly. One of the superhumans, Withrow, was killed in the battle. The news hit the president and the others like a heavy blow. Shock and disbelief filled the room, and a solemn silence followed. Withrow's death was an unexpected and devastating outcome, leaving everyone feeling the weight of the sacrifices made in the fight against the Inhumans. The news about the Royal Utopia's cruise and the recent events in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, continued to dominate the TV screen as Lim Kang watched and enjoyed his ramen at home. Unaware of Jurai's request to wait for him, Lim Kang continued eating without a care in the world, causing Jurai to become increasingly annoyed. Calling out to Lim Kang from the toilet, Jurai expressed his frustration, asking him to wait as he had requested. Lim Kang, in his usual nonchalant manner, thoughtlessly replied with a suggestion for toilet paper, not realizing Jurai's irritation. But as he checked the remaining food and realized he had eaten it all, Lim Kang regretted not paying attention earlier and decided to make more ramen. As Jurai emerged from the toilet, he confronted Lim Kang about finishing all the food that he had prepared. Jurai was not going to hold back any longer and was determined to teach him a lesson. However, before he could finish his sentence, they both heard the news on the TV announcing the passing of Withrow, one of the superhumans from Pearl's team. The news of Withrow's sacrifice, which had contributed significantly to resolving half of the Inhuman crises in recent years, shocked and saddened the entire world. Jurai's mood shifted, and he contemplated the gravity of the situation as he realized that a superhuman had lost their life. Lim Kang, on the other hand, remained silent, his face serious as he continued to watch the news. The loss of Withrow weighed heavily on their minds, and the room fell into a somber silence. Breaking the silence, Jurai tried to lighten the mood, urging Lim Kang to make more ramen. However, Lim Kang was not in the mood for it, and he simply replied that he didn't feel like making more. Jurai, not wanting to get into an argument, insisted that Lim Kang should make more ramen and just stop being so serious. On top of a building, Danyang and Nangai were watching the news on a large TV screen beside them. The news of Withrow's death shocked Danyang, who expressed his surprise at the superhuman's passing. Nangai, however, laughed loudly in response, saying that superhumans were not invincible and that all humans eventually die. He believed that Withrow and Pearl had likely fought their battles individually. Curious about Nangai's certainty, Danyang questioned why he thought that way. Nangai explained that he had encountered Saint Pearl before and even got caught observing her fight. He recounted that they had sensed each other's presence, and eventually, he revealed himself to her. Despite emanating hostility, Pearl had let him go, even though he was suspicious. Danyang praised her kindness, but Nangai remarked that if she had chosen otherwise, they might have never met. Looking up at the night sky, Danyang expressed doubt about Nangai's words, pointing out that half of what he said were lies. Nangai playfully denied this, claiming he didn't tell lies. Danyang countered, calling his last statement another lie. In a car driving along Interstate 95 in Florida, James was trying to get in touch with his colleague Ben. He called Ben's number, and when Ben answered, he sounded annoyed at the early call. "Damn, who's calling so early?" Ben grumbled. James quickly replied, "Ben, it's me, James. Listen, we've got a problem." On the other end of the line, Ben's annoyance turned into concern. "James, where are you? I heard you've returned, but what's up with this number?" James explained, "It's a burner phone, you idiot. Never mind that something serious has happened. Mr. Withrow's body has disappeared." Ben was taken aback. "What? How is that even possible?" James admitted that he didn't know the details yet and warned Ben not to share the information with anyone. He emphasized that it was top secret. Even Mr. Withrow's funeral has been cancelled. "Things are complicated right now. We'll have a briefing tomorrow to discuss the case. I'll explain everything then." Ben understood the seriousness of the situation and asked James what he should investigate regarding the cruise. James assured him that it wasn't anything too difficult and promised to text him the details. "Roger, leave it to me," Ben replied with determination. As the call ended, both James and Ben had anger in their eyes. They couldn't believe that someone would be so vile as to tamper with the body of the deceased.